Okay, well, good morning, everyone. My name is Nancy Smith. I'm a leader from Pima County Interfaith, and I attend St. Pius X Catholic Community. This morning, we're here to present a Civic Academy on the effect of the pandemic on evictions and what's involved in an eviction process, as well as how people can get rental assistance. And we have some special guests to help us with that. As is our tradition, we're going to start this morning with a prayer, and I'm going to call on Leah Sandwell-Weiss to offer a prayer for us.
So, the Lord be with you.
And with your
spirit.
Grant, O God, that your holy and life-giving spirit may so move every human heart, and especially the hearts of the people of this land, that barriers which divide us may crumble, suspicions disappear, and hatred cease, that our divisions being healed, we may live in justice and peace. Through Jesus Christ our Lord.
Amen.
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 So we have some special guests this morning, and I'm going to just take a minute to introduce our presenters. So first up, we have Danny Nee, who is with the Pima County Housing Office. Did I get that right, Danny?
I'm actually with Community Investment Corporation. We're a nonprofit who works with the Pima County and their housing work.
All right, thank you, Danny, for that correction. Danny's going to tell us about rental assistance. After that, we will have Leah Sandwell-Weiss, who's going to tell us about the evictions process. Leah is a deacon at St. Phillips in the Hills and worked for many years as the law school librarian at the University of Arizona. We also have with us today Amanda Rutherford, who is a lawyer with Step Up to Justice, who will provide us with some extra legal expertise and possibly, if we get questions along those lines, be able to help us answer those at the last part of the presentation. We want to thank Jane Prescott Smith for helping us organize this whole thing. Jane is a PCI leader from St. Phillips in the Hills. And I would like to take just a minute to tell you all a little bit about Pima County Interfaith. Not everyone here is familiar with us. So we are an organization, we've been around for about 30 years in the Tucson community. We are affiliated with a larger organization called the Industrial Areas Foundation. And what we do is we organize people to stand up for themselves, to advocate for the needs of their communities. We work frequently with underserved communities, but not always, because we find that the interests of our entire community often coincide with everybody. We are formed of about 30 different faith communities and nonprofits. As an example of a nonprofit, the Community Food Bank is one of our active members. We have done a lot of things over the last year with respect to the pandemic, because one of our missions is education. And we put together a series of short videos about the different parts of the CARE Act. We did a Civic Academy just last week on vaccines, how and why and who and all that, about how to get one. We were also very active in getting out the vote this last fall, and we held what we call an accountability session with the candidates for Pima County Supervisor and Sheriff. We do that regularly for our major elections. We are about issues, not about parties. So while our group is political in the sense that you have to be involved in the politics of heard appropriate ways to get things done, we are nonpartisan. And so the issues that matter to us. So any questions about that, you can contact any of our members at any time, and we will help you to understand. At this point, I'm going to turn the mic over to Jane.
Thank you, Nancy.
Jane?
I'm just going to give you a little bit of feel for how today is going to unfold. As Nancy mentioned, the first person up will be Danny Nee from Community Investment Corp. His organization has been working with both the county and the city on creating a portal for people to apply for rental assistance. He's going to walk you through that and tell you how you can take advantage of that system. After that, then some of the people that you're working with may be facing eviction. Despite the CDC moratorium, there are a lot of ways that landlords are trying to get around that and still get evictions through the court. So Leah Sandwell-Weiss, who is a retired law librarian from the Rogers School of Law, will take you through the options that people have at each step of the eviction process. Then we're going to go into breakout rooms and do something that at PCI we call a house meeting. And basically what it does is it uses a circles process. We will have some facilitators who will take you through the guidelines, but it's basically one person talks at a time. There's no crosstalk. There's no questioning or judgment. Each person gets to share their response to the question the facilitator will put on the table. We hope to come out of those breakout groups with questions that we will then pose to our experts. Danny Nee will answer questions about rental assistance, and Amanda Rutherford will answer questions about the eviction process. So then we will call the meeting to a close and be able to give you some contact information. The one thing I would mention about the breakout groups when we're coming up with questions is to try and keep them general. You don't want to be asking any kind of a question that would divulge privileged information in this context. And so we will be sharing Danny and Amanda's contact information if you have specific questions about a specific situation, so you'll be able to contact them one-on-one. With that said, I'm going to pass this off to Anna Chavarin, who's going to explain a little bit about technology and how we're going to get into those breakout rooms.
Hi everyone, this is Anna Chavarin, organizer with Pima County Interfaith. One of our rules when we're doing these presentations is that if you don't have any questions or anything, leave your microphones muted so we have a better sound of what is happening in the chat. When we come to the, excuse me, to the specific point of the breakouts, I'm going to assign you guys and you're gonna see sign on your screen that says join breakout room with a number. So just click and join. That's it. There's nothing really fancy to explain about it.
All right, so now we're going to go ahead and turn the screen and the mic over to Danny Nee, who is going to talk to us about how do you get rental assistance in Pima County.
Thanks so much, Nancy, and thanks for having me here today. So I'm Danny Nee, I'm the Executive Director for Community Investment Corporation. Last August, from middle of August to November 30th, we were part of Pima County's effort to get out funds for eviction prevention. It was the first stimulus funds. One of the reasons I mentioned that is during that time, we built an online portal to help us with efficiency. One of the things that's facing everyone right now is that people are in crisis, and speed and volume is actually very important to what we're doing. In a lot of the rental assistance that is given generally throughout the year, there are rental assistance programs that existed prior to this. They actually focus a little more on case management and potentially wraparound services, and we want to be just clear. There are case managers that are working on each of the cases that we have, but the focus really is on getting the money and the assistance out. One other thing that I would like to note is that this is a two-sided problem. It's a problem for landlords as well as tenants. It's not a tenant versus landlord issue. And sometimes it's sort of put that way. And it can be like that at times, for sure. There are antagonistic relationships, but in general, this really is landlords are being asked to bear the burden of a public policy decision, which is to have moratoriums. And they're the ones who are also out money. They're not all greedy landlords, and and we really need to, I think about the problem in that way. They've been some of our best partners when they're involved in the process. They actually make things go more quickly. So one of the things that I'm just gonna share my screen here with a couple of different times. One, I'm gonna actually bring you through our website in just a second. Make sure, Nancy, can you give me a hi sign if you can see what's on there? Okay, great. So what we have in front of us right now, this is the second round of stimulus funding that's going to be coming through. There is going to be anywhere from $24 million to $31 million. The estimate of how many households that will help is 6,000 to 7,000 households. I can give you a couple of quick statistics. Last time when we helped families, the average amount the household needed was $3,300. That was over 900 families that we helped in the last round. We expect this one's going to be higher amounts of money needing to go out, and there are two reasons for that. One is that there has not been emergency funding available, this type of funding, since basically the end of the year, December 31st. The city was still working on a program then. The counties that we were working on, we ended on November 30th. So we've had a pretty big lag time, and so the amount of arrears has probably been picking up. The other thing, which is also really beneficial, is that in this round of funding, people are going to be able to get 12 months of arrears, and they're going to be able to actually get 3 months going forward. Last time they were able to get 1 month going forward. So people who need assistance will actually get the next 3 months paid for as well, so they're not in the same position immediately. We have this online portal. There are 3 websites, and they all go to the same place. And basically what it was is that pimaep.com is what we created first. And in this time around, the city of Tucson and Pima County decided to work together. This is a very important change. And so they wanted to have Tucson EP. So we have TucsonEP.com. And what they all do is they all go to TucsonPimaEP.com. But you can use any of those and you'll wind up on the same website. I'm going to share that right now. But what I also want to tell you is that we currently have a waiting list of 2,500 people, 2,500 households, and growing every day. To give just a little bit of context, last time the work we were doing, our biggest week was somewhere in the 200 to 250 household range. We will have more capacity this time because of people working together, but this is going to take a bit of time even to get through the backlog before we get to people who are just finding out about this. So I'm going to switch over, see here if I can get my other screen working. Are we good with the new screen? Okay, so this is what the website looks like. As you can see, it says TucsonPimaEP.com up top. And it shows you, we've tried to keep it sort of stripped down, not real fancy looking. It's mostly meant to be about information and providing links to different things. We also put important updates on here. So one of the things that we've recently done, and again, because we talked about landlords who want updates on where this process is, they can opt into their own program communications and updates that we're doing through this link right here. Down below, either a landlord or a tenant can start the process, and I'm going to run you through that through apply for this waiting list. As you can see, our last update was as of December 11th. All the current funding was fully committed when we put that up, and we're now just getting ready to actually have that new round of funding. So here's what you're doing when you, applying for the waiting list is pretty easy. You click on apply for the waiting list, and if my life is going well, this will work, and it will. All right. So And basically it asks you before you get started, are you a tenant or are you a landlord? So you pick whichever one you are. It's pretty simple. You go to next, and there's a little bit of, there's just these logic things that are built in depending on who you are. So in this case, you just basically go in and you say, hey, you know, I'm John Doe. You fill in whatever your address is. So that's, this is our address at Community Investment Corporation, and our email address, whoever your email, where you want to get your email. You go through this, it asks you about your primary phone number. Is it a cell phone number? If it's not, they also ask, is there another phone number you can be reached? If you want to be reached by cell phone, you can put in a different number here, but we're trying to get as much contact information as we can. And the reason being, one of the biggest holdups is being able to actually contact people and get them going on the process, especially when they've been sitting waiting on a waiting list for it, and it's possible they've been waiting since back to November. So yes, that secondary phone one is, it asks, can we send you a text message? We actually have text messaging capability. For some people, that is a better way to try to get a hold of them than to actually get a phone call from a number that you don't know. I barely ever answer phone calls from numbers I don't know on my cell phone. So we can text people. We also ask things like, hey, we would like to be in touch with your landlord as well. So would you provide the contact information of your landlord so that we as the case managers can reach out to them to tell them about what it is that we're trying to do and get them on board with the process as soon as we can. So the same thing, we just fill out the information. It basically has an email and a phone number that you'll fill out for whoever your landlord is. Just going to put some of my same phone numbers here. I'm not very good at this, but eventually get the hang of it. Okay, and then at this point, you just hit next. And what it will do is it's going to ask in this last part, it just is there anything else to know? We currently are just trying to hear where people are. Sometimes people tell us, well, they've gotten an eviction notice already. They have a judgment against us. They can potentially give us a little more information. We want to try to build this out a little bit more to give people a better idea of the information that we are potentially looking for and that would be helpful in here. So this is something, this website is constantly being worked on because changes are happening to the program fairly consistently, but we also are basically, the way that we work is we constantly want to improve whatever we're doing based on the feedback we get, because we don't always know the perfect way to do something out of the gate. So what happens is whatever you put in there, you push submit. When you do that, it generates an automatic email that then goes to your that will go to you. So the email, the way it looks, let me see if I can share my screen and show you the email here and make sure that works. Can you see the new email now? So this is the information that that comes through. You actually get a number on the waiting list. And we are going to work, one of the things that we really want to work on is making sure that people can manage the expectation of how long this will take so that they can plan for what they need to do. The unfortunate part is we are not going to be able to get to everybody the first day that funding comes available. So we want people to know what their options are. And additionally, this tells you what information it is that will be needed. So to apply, you need a state issue ID, you need a current executed lease, you're going to need some income documentation. We can talk a little bit about that. And you also need some documentation of a COVID impact. So that's different than last time. And this is also one of the things that can be confusing, is that sometimes the rules change depending on the funding, what gets agreed upon by Congress. And so we understand that sometimes people are like, well, that's not how it was last time. And we wish, honestly, that there weren't some of these requirements. The more requirements there are, the more documentation required, the slower that this is. It just takes us time to process these things. So those are the keys right now for what it is that the tenants need. On the landlord side, and I'll just do switch if I can here. I'm gonna try to switch over to I have the landlord one as well. So let me see if I can do this. And are you able to see the landlord one, Nancy? Okay, so so this is basically what it shows. Is it also shows you the different things that are required. So for a landlord, they're going to have to provide a W-9, which is basically just showing that they've received this money. They need to have a valid U.S. government ID or a management agreement. We need to prove that there is a legitimate relationship between a landlord and a tenant. They are going to need to have a rent ledger of some sort to say, look, here's how much been paid, here's how much is in arrears. And then there's other things. If there's a unpaid notice of eviction, any court documents, they can put in those things. If they want it, we can actually do an ACH payment. If they want to get the money immediately, they can give us bank information and we can set up so that once the file is approved, they can actually get their money the very next day. And then, of course, a signed lease agreement. So that's the basics of what we have going on right now. The system is not yet up. The system's running in terms of getting the waiting list. The new funding is not available yet. And I'll just go back real quick to the first slide I had. And so some of the things to know is that on March 2nd is when the Pima County Board of Supervisors is basically voting on the funding, how it's getting allocated, who it's getting allocated to. Most of the discussions that we have been involved in suggest that it will run through Community Investment Corporation. Our role in this, just so that people know, is we're sort of the grease behind making this making the process work a little bit better. The groups that are going to be doing the work in the case management are all the same social service agencies that do this amazing work all the time. It's the Pio Decimos, it is Primavera Foundation, it's Chicanos por la Casa. It's just a whole number. We have right now, we have 13 applicants to be a part of this. And what we do is we manage the intake, where there's a single intake, and then we help to make sure that all the cases are being worked on. And we have a central sort of project management system whereby we can assign these cases out to the different agencies, but nobody gets overwhelmed where there have too many that are waiting. We kind of basically do it evenly based upon how people are managing to get through the cases. The other role that we play is to try to work on the harder cases. The idea is, again, we really want high volume. So we want the case managers working through the sort of straightforward cases as much as they can. And then we have some staff on the back end that can occasionally work on more difficult cases. A few quick things for qualifications. It is on our website. It's on that main page, all the qualifications. I probably should have done that. And so I'm sorry, I'll go back to that super quick. In the, let's see if I can go back to this real quick. On this page, are you able to see the eligibility information, Nancy? Okay, so this is basically the eligibility this time around. Last time there was a higher area median income. It's generally the gross income in a household. This time it's at 80% of area median income. We have a chart here. It's based on household size, how many people who are in the household. and you can look that up to see where you're at. The reason why we have some of the other actual area median incomes is there are priorities that have to be given during this round. Those priorities include families at 50% of area median income, and it also includes people that are currently unemployed and have been unemployed for 90 days or more. There are different priorities. It's a little complicated in terms of how we're scoring that, but one of the things that we're trying to make sure is the longer that you're on the list, the higher your sort of need score becomes. So every week you're on the list, you get a point added. And what that means is just that those who don't have a priority, those who are at 80% area median income, aren't unemployed necessarily, they will eventually still get served, but others are going to be served ahead of them, but they're not always bumped out of place. They will eventually get served, but it is something to know, depending on who you're helping. If they don't have a priority category, it's probably going to take a little bit longer. The other thing is to look at, they want to see that there's a reduction or loss of household income, or their health and safety concerns around COVID. There's been a crisis event around that. Those are the types of things that they're looking for in proof of the financial hardship. The other thing that they're looking at, because of this time it's income, we actually have to do income verification. Last time it was self-certification, and that was much easier. We will be collecting documentation. So just super quickly, and this is hard because one of the easiest form is to have your taxes from 2020. And not, if you're like me, you definitely haven't done your taxes yet. But if people are waiting and have the ability to do taxes, we actually are going to be getting up some information on here about free tax clinics that the United Way and a bunch of people work on. But that is the easiest way. It requires the least amount of documentation. It's the most straightforward. If somebody hasn't done their taxes, then they're going to have to provide basically pay stubs. And then we have to go through the process of looking at those pay stubs. Income for a household is determined by everybody who is over 18 years old in the household, who lives in that household, and who is not a full-time student. So a full-time college student, if they have a side job or whatever it is, their income won't be included. Things like unemployment benefits are included in income, and we'll have that whole list, but it probably isn't great to get into too much detail right now, but these are really the basics. The other thing that our website helps you do is you'll see we have information about critical steps for tenants to qualify for the CDC eviction moratorium, and this is probably a good segue into some of the court stuff. You are required, landlords are trying to evict people for non-payment of rent. They cannot do so, at least through March 31st, but the individual who wants to take advantage of the moratorium and wants to be protected by the moratorium actually needs to fill out a form. We have that form here. They have to basically, what they're doing is they have to prove, or they have to certify that they've actually looked for assistance. The email that you automatically get for applying for the waiting list is something that you can use as proof of that assistance. And then additionally, this is a form, this is the CDC form, the official one that you can also sign. And these would help in the case of a court case, or they may help in case that landlords don't really understand the moratorium, to say, hey, this is the CDC moratorium. We are doing the things, we attest to these things in here. And so we have protection, and we'll try to work with you the best we can to get as much money as we can to you, or when that assistance comes available. So I think those are sort of the big things. I'm sorry, I know that's a lot to go through, but really there's a lot. This website is a really useful place to go for people in need. And we do also have alternatives. So if you're not computer savvy, we have a phone system where you can start this, and you can go to our website, to get some of that information. And we're going to get the information up here when actual cases are getting going again on the Pima EP. And we also have case managers. So if somebody's like, I don't know how to do this, you can call somebody will call you back and they'll sign you up. They'll basically do all the computer stuff for you, or they can give you a paper application. So we're not shutting out people just because they don't have computers, but it's much more efficient. The more people who can do it this way, the easier it is on everyone, but we'll help anybody no matter their need. Sorry, I think I went a little over time, but I hope that's okay.
I thank you, Danny, for that presentation. So everybody in the audience now, if you have some questions for Danny or some things that you want to think about, write those questions down, because after we do our breakout rooms, we'll come up with some questions in those rooms to ask. So we're going to ask you to hold off on your questions now, and we'll come back to them after the next presentation. And so I believe the next thing we're doing is we're going to turn the mic over to Leah Sandwell-Weiss, who is going to talk to us about the eviction process. And this will go into not a whole lot of detail, but some detail about what happens if someone gets an eviction notice and what they have to do and how the courts are involved. So Leah, take it away.
All right. Thank you for being here today, and hopefully this will help for you and for folks that you know to help understand a little bit more about the eviction process. Now, I was a lawyer, but I never practiced in this area. I just did occasional research in it as a law librarian. One of the things that we always start off with is a little bit about what we're going to cover today, and a distinction in what we're not covering today. The Arizona eviction law is very complicated, at least it seems so, and it covers a lot of different things. So today I'm going to cover the basic residential, you live in an apartment or a house and you're renting it, okay? Some folks, however, live in mobile homes or they live in RVs. They have different rules for them, but I'm not going to cover them. I'm also not going to get into the weeds about different types of defenses that you might have, counterclaims against the landlord, things like that. This is primarily just the basics. So I'm going to start with some basic terms, words that you're going to, and phrases that you're going to see if you're dealing with a possible eviction. The two types of eviction that you might come across: for non-payment of rent, which is what we're thinking of right now. But what we're also finding is if landlords if they can't kick you out for non-payment of rent, they might look for something else. Or again, some material breaches may already exist. And we'll talk about what those are and the little bit of differences between the two types. We'll talk about what your options are and the general process, and then where to get help. And we've also already heard some good stuff from Danny about how you can get some financial help. So the general process, I'm gonna just show you the steps, and the words in bold are pretty much the terms that I'm gonna be talking about this morning. So the landlord provides you a notice about the lease or rental agreement that you haven't been following, or they think you haven't been following. This notice has to be in writing. If the landlord calls you up on the phone, if they email you, maybe, I don't know that that's going to be considered in writing, but pretty much if they just chat or they send somebody over to tell you, hey, we haven't gotten your check, that doesn't count, and that has other implications. This notice will give you some time limits to see if you can fix this issue. If it's not fixed, then the landlord can file a complaint with the court to evict you. You're issued a summons so that you can come to court and try and make your case that you shouldn't be evicted. There's going to be a hearing then with the judge about the complaint. The landlord or his attorney or other representative will be there You should be there too, if at all possible. And there's reasons for that. Then the judge decides who should have possession of the property, who owes whom any money, and will issue a judgment. If the judge determines you're to be evicted, then the landlord will request a writ of restitution or a lockout order that will to remove you from the property and change the locks. So, violating the lease. Sometimes these violations are called a material breach or material non-compliance. Something is material when it is significant. Okay, so there's a lot of detailed information in your lease, and if you don't do something that's in there, or do something that violates that can be a material breach, and that can be a reason for being evicted. So the notice, again, it has to be in writing. There's several different types of notices. There's a 10-day notice, which is a general notice to fix a lease violation that is significant or material. Example may be your lease says the lease is for you and your spouse, and your brother comes and lives with you. He's not on the list of people who are allowed to be in there. Could be a material violation of the lease. Or it says no pets and you've got your favorite dog with you. Okay. So you've got 10 days to try and fix those violations, kick your brother out, add him to the lease, get rid of the pet, add the pet to the lease, or you could then get a complaint against you. A 5-day notice, there are actually 2 types. The first one is again a material breach, but it's to fix any violation impacting health or safety. For example, you're a beginning hoarder. There's a lot of newspapers packed up on your porch, or you've got some kind of unsupervised pets that aren't allowed. Maybe you've got, I know my lease has a list of pets, of dogs that aren't allowed to have in the apartment. And so you get that pit bull or the Doberman or the whatever, that could be a more serious violation. The other type of 5-day notice is you haven't paid your rent. Again, usually you have your lease, your rent is due on X day. You have maybe 5 days to pay it. You have 10 days to pay it with a penalty. And after that 10 days, you can be evicted. So the final type of notice is an immediate notice. This is very serious, a material and irreparable breach, meaning that it's something that they don't think you can fix. You've damaged the property. There's dangerous criminal activity that's happening, that sort of thing. The landlord then can immediately end the lease and kick you out very quickly. Now, one of the things is then they shouldn't mix and match these notices. You shouldn't be getting an immediate notice when it's for failure to pay the rent, for example. Now, a complaint, that's what the landlord believes you did to violate the lease. So there's some specific things that have to be in it, why they want you out, when you were served or given the notice, how you were served or given the required notice. And if you're getting subsidized housing, there's a technical requirement that needs to be in there too. Could make a difference in how much money you owe. Then you'll have a summons. That's the official notice of a lawsuit. Provides information about the complaint and details about the hearing, like when it's going to be and location. It's usually 3 to 6 days after the summons is issued. So notice that how quickly this can be happening. The landlord's responsible for serving you at least 2 days before the hearing. Now, when you're being served, it has to be delivered in person, either to you or to another person of suitable age and discretion who lives with you, your spouse or partner, not your 5-year-old. Or they can post a copy on your door or other place where you're likely to find it and send another copy to you by certified mail, return receipt requested. Then that you'll have the hearing. Now the hearing is to decide if the landlord has a legal right to evict you. And if you believe they don't, you can respond to the landlord's complaint by providing an answer with the court. Now the answer is a statement from you in response to the allegations made in the complaint. You can file a written answer, or you can go to the hearing and answer in open court. Now there's different options with this. The written answer is a good thing to do, but there is a fee. But on the other hand, you can file a fee waiver. If you just answer when you're there at the hearing, there's no fee. Now, this is where you would put your defenses, such as I did pay the rent, I got caught up, I didn't have the right notice, that sort of things. Now, why should I bother going to the eviction hearing? Well, it provides an opportunity to tell your side of the story to the judge. You have definitely a possibility of winning your case and staying in your home. If you don't show up, you basically have no chance. It's an opportunity for the judge to order a landlord to make repairs or address serious conditions that are the landlord's responsibility. It's an opportunity to appeal the judgment. If you're not there, you can't appeal the decision. So then the judge is going to decide 2 things: whether you should be evicted, a judgment for possession, and a judgment for money. How much money you owe the landlord or the landlord owes you. Then there's what's called a writ of restitution. This is the court order instructing the sheriff or constable to physically remove you from the property and change the locks. There's some timing on this. If it's non-payment of rent or material breach, there'll be at least 5 days before a writ of restitution is issued. Again, this is quick. If it's material irreparable breach, you may only have a day or less before it's ordered. This is also called lockout orders. So now we'll go into a little bit of the options and process for the 2 different types of evictions that we're talking about. If you are being evicted for non-payment of rent, you've gotten notice, you have 3 basic options. You can move. Just surrender the possession within the time period set in the notice and leave. Now, why would you want to do that? Well, this should stop the eviction process and mean that you won't have an eviction showing up on your record. As you may know, it's very difficult to find another place to rent if you've been evicted and have that on your record. You can pay any part of the rent owed within the notice period and hope the landlord accepts it. So you borrow money, you get a good chunk of the money, you pay it, you take it to the landlord and said, will you take this as a good faith effort for me to pay this and stop the eviction? Document. Get witnesses if you can, as well as a receipt. The landlord doesn't have to accept it, but if he does, this should stop the process. Or you could do nothing and wait to get the notice. So here's a flow chart that kind of shows all this. You leave the property and surrender possession within the 5 days of the notice period, then the landlord shouldn't be filing an eviction notice. If you pay any part of the rent and it's accepted by the landlord, again, no eviction should be filed. If you don't pay or move out, then the landlord will file the eviction action and you're served with the summons and complaint. Now, at this point, you come up with the money and you pay the landlord, then the eviction should be dismissed. But at this point, you're probably having to pay the full amount owed, and there's maybe some fees that you'll be required to pay too. So it's a bit more expensive, and it should be dismissed. But say you don't do that either, and it goes to a court hearing. You attend and you dispute that you owe all this money. There's a trial, and then the judge enters a judgment. You win, yay, you can stay. You lose, well, then there's a writ of restitution. It's executed and you are locked out of the property. There's some technical stuff about how much time you have to get your stuff out, and also how long the landlord can keep your property before disposing of it in whatever way they choose. It's usually 2 weeks. Now, if you don't go to the hearing, you get a default judgment against you. These same results apply. If you attend, but you admit that, yes, you owe this, then the landlord gets a judgment in his or her favor, and these same things apply. What if I can't pay the rent because of COVID? Now, this is what Danny was talking about earlier. Filling out the CDC moratorium form, give it to your landlord. This should put him on notice that this is what's going on. If you're still given notice of eviction for non-payment, attend the hearing and provide all your documentation to the judge. This should stop the process for now. But remember, it's not, it doesn't eliminate the need to pay the rent. It just delays the eviction. Now, if it's an eviction for material breach, the notice has to give you this, again, the specific information, what's wrong, how much time to fix it, 5 or 10 days, and how the landlord's going to file for eviction. And your options are similar. You can fix the problem within the 5 or 10 days, or you can move out within 5 or 10 days. And the chart is similar in a way as well. You go to a court hearing, you attend it, you dispute it, you say you fixed it, or it really wasn't that much, it doesn't fit the qualifications of being a material breach. The judge decides. You win, yeah, you can stay. You lose, there's a writ of restitution, a lockout order issued with that is executed, and again, they can hold your property for 14 days and then get rid of it if you can't get your stuff out. If you don't attend the hearing, default judgment against you. You attend the hearing, but you admitted that there was this breach, but it's just not fair, whatever your defense may be, the judgment is ordered for the landlord and the writ of restitutions go on, and you're forced out of your apartment or home. So what can you do? Seek help as soon as you know you have a problem. When you see that you're going to have a problem making rent, apply for rental assistance and contact these agencies that can give you some legal assistance. The sooner you can get some help, the better. So there's a website, Arizona Eviction Help, at let's see if I can bring this up, that goes through all these steps, has links to a lot of stuff, helps you with your rights, and also has help is available. They have links to this information. The Step Up to Justice, where Amanda works, has attorneys, both within the organization and contacts of folks that volunteer attorneys. You can apply for help through them, or you can sign up for their eviction prevention legal clinic. And I'm sure Amanda will be talking more about that after our breakout sessions. Southern Arizona Legal Aid provides us eviction help. That's their number. And of course, for rental assistance, here's the link that Danny had. So that's the end of this presentation. I think we're ready to move on to our breakout rooms.
Right, so Anna is going to put us into breakout rooms. There will be a person, I know I'm one of the leaders in the breakout rooms. We're going to go through a series of questions and you'll all get the chance to speak about the issues. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jane, are the breakout rooms for 20 minutes?
I wonder if we could possibly get done in 15 because I'd like to make sure we have enough time for questions for everybody, and it's 10 till 11 already. What do we think? Because we've got small groups. We've got 5 to 6 people in a group.
So I think
No.
15 minutes is what we're going to do. So
Try and be back by 5 to 7 minutes after the hour.
right.
And I
So,
just
and I think we'll get a warning in the breakout rooms telling us that we need to go back. So everybody just be a little bit patient. Anna's going to put us in breakout rooms. Your screen's going to look a little bit funny for a second, and then you'll find yourself with a leader in a different room where we can all talk. So Anna?
There are 3 questions and I've just put them in chat.
Yeah, you're gonna see that it's going to appear in your screen, join room 1, 2, or 3. Just click join and you're gonna be there. And here you go. Jane has to go to room 2. Give me 1 second. Danny and Amanda, I didn't assign you to a room because I fear that people will start asking you the questions there and not allowing everyone to hear the answers. So if you want to take these 15 minutes and get a little break and just turn off your cameras or whatever you need to do, and we see you in 15 minutes.
Thank you so much. That sounds good.
Absolutely. Jane, I don't know what happened and why you couldn't join, and I cannot find a way to send you the invite again. So what I'm gonna do is I am going to enter that room and I am going to facilitate that room. Because I don't know how to send you again. It doesn't give me a choice to do that. Hi guys, and people are almost ready to come back. They have 2 more minutes to come back. So there are some very interesting questions. One of the questions that I heard in the group was, what are the protections for undocumented people in this case if they have a contract with the landlords and they are about to get evicted, if they have any type of protection, or if they can even speak up and say something, or they are on fear of what could happen to them because if they are undocumented. So I don't know if this is something that you guys can answer, but if you're gonna start thinking about that question, if there's any possible answer to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've definitely had that come up, and I mean, unfortunately, unlike employment law or something like that, under landlord tenant, it's just civil under the states. And so we've had people in situations where landlords have like extorted families and threatened to call ICE if they didn't cooperate, and it's awful. And there's not a good answer. But I have, I definitely have some thoughts. About how the community
that question might come up, and so I just want to give you guys a head up so you can prepare the best that you can.
Yeah.
So people is starting to return to the main room. Dun, 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 dun. Where are all the others? Let me go and make sure that I close all the rooms. Oh, okay, they still have like 15 seconds.
Yeah, I just said everybody could leave. We don't need to wait. We were pretty much done.
I hope they understood leave from the room and not leave from the presentation.
Yes. There we go. We're seeing
There we go. Okay, so I think that a way to go is to ask per groups. Group 1, group 2, group 3. So Nancy, I believe you were in charge of this section.
In charge of a group, you want me to ask the questions from our group? Is that correct?
No, I think that you can ask who is going to ask a question for group 1.
Okay, so I'll do that. So who's going to ask the question for group 1? Who is in charge of group 1? Leah. Okay, Leah, would you like to pose one of the questions and let us know if the question's for Amanda or the question's for Danny?
Okay. We had 2 questions, so I'll start off with one and then everybody have them. We had a question, Amanda, about what is the need for attorneys to represent. How many attorneys would it take to really cover these, the folks that are in need?
That is such a great question. I think the need is really high. What we have seen, and this is national data, so it's not necessarily specific to Arizona, but that tenants are actually 19 times more likely to succeed in an eviction hearing if they're represented by an attorney. What I know about even before COVID and what was happening, Pima County was already in an eviction crisis. So there were upwards of between 14 and 15,000 evictions a year, which means that those justices of the peace, their calendars are extremely full and hearings would be anywhere from 20 seconds to a few minutes. And so it doesn't feel like an actual meaningful time in court for most tenants. But having an attorney present greatly curbs that because they have an advocate there, and it also ensures that things are getting caught and that, both the judge and the other side are kind of on their best behavior, or at least there's a little bit more accountability, in my opinion. And I think it would take the question about how many attorneys it would take, and I don't know the answer to that, but it would probably be a lot. But I think it's a really, really worthy pursuit. I think that I know that SALA has staff attorneys that are able to represent tenants in court, which is fantastic. And I even think they might have put people like from other units into their housing unit since COVID to try and like beef up their ability to meet the need. Step Up to Justice. The vast majority of our clients, we do an advice appointment where they get to meet with a private attorney, a volunteer attorney, to get advice about their case. And we try really hard to refer cases out for direct representation. And what we have found is that outside of ourselves and Southern Arizona Legal Aid, there are not attorneys in town that take the tenant side for cases. There's a lot of landlord attorneys, and we aren't able to find folks that are able to represent tenants or are willing. So I would love to work with any of you all to try to navigate a solution on that.
Thank you, Amanda. I was the leader of group 2, and so
Nancy, can I ask a question before moving to group 2? Is it expensive to get an attorney? Because many of the people think that they cannot afford one and they go without one. How does that work? How can I get one if I don't have money?
Yeah, so it is expensive to hire an attorney privately. And so, but if you qualify for services at Southern Arizona Legal Aid or Step Up to Justice, we have the same financial guidelines that we follow. Our services are all free. But the reality of the situation is we're 2 organizations and the need is huge. So we help as many people as we can. And then there are still many more people that still need help. I have not heard of landlord tenant attorneys in town that work on a sliding scale. That does happen in some other areas of law, but I don't know of any, but I could be wrong. And if I ever hear about anyone, I will definitely share their resource.
Amanda, can I jump in and ask a question? Does it make any difference if someone just has a friend with them when they go to court? You're saying if they have a lawyer with them, they're 19, they have a much better chance of success. But even just having someone else there as a neutral third party, does that make any difference?
I definitely think that it could. I think it would make a big difference as far as moral support. That person, if they're not a party to the case, they wouldn't be allowed to speak. So you have to either be one of the parties, the judge, or representing one of the 2 parties to actually, for the judge to allow you to participate.
Okay, thank you.
So we had a question in our group that's more for Danny. So Danny, the question was, what is the level of assistance that you guys provide? So do you provide like 60%, 80%, 100%? Or what does it depend on?
It's 100% of what is owed plus 3 months forward. I will say in this round, what's been really good is the city and the county have, because they're working together instead of using their own processes, they're also covering all the same costs. So that includes up to $250 of court costs, and we say that without documentation. So a landlord can claim that without having to provide a whole bunch of stuff. If it's more than that, they would. And this time around, they'll be able to, we're asking landlords to waive late fees, but they will be able to get late fees. And again, as long as there's a reasonableness around that to get them caught up. So they get 12 months in arrears, 3 months full, up to 12 months, whatever they owe in the past, 3 months forward. And it's 100% of what they owe, as long as they are a qualifying individual.
And then a related question. So if someone is struggling, they manage to pay their rent, but then they can't pay their utilities.
So
what happens?
Yeah, so in our case, we are going to be trying to serve both those needs. The primary, and the idea of it is, the primary is coming in for eviction prevention, and those who have rental assistance needs and also have utility needs, we are going to serve that all at once. In the case that you don't actually have, you're not behind in rent, that actually has to go through, unfortunately, it goes through a different process, community action agency with Pima County, or some of the standard nonprofits that work with that type of rental assistance. But there is a portion of this funding of the 31 million that's being talked about that is being put aside to pay utilities. And there are no caps currently. And I say that currently, what the approach is to figure out exactly how much is being spent probably over the first 2 months of when money is spent, and then figure out, does there need to be a cap? And hopefully there won't be. But again, we're trying to figure out, is there going to be more money coming forward? Our moratorium is going to be extended further out into the future. How long will the money we have last? And some of those decisions are going to be made as we get actual more data on the need.
Thank you. And I know people can also work with TEP and Tucson Water to set up payment plans and things like that. So that's another option for folks. Jane, did you lead the third group?
Actually, Anna did.
Okay, Anna?
Yes, and Rocio and Reverend Moore have a couple of questions.
Yeah, I have a question, a very important one for our Hispanic community that we haven't seen it, but I'm sure that we're gonna see that situation soon. And I'm gonna talk in the aspect of the renter and the landlord. What happened if the renter is an undocumented person and he's been paying every month, has a contract, everything, but is in this situation that he cannot pay his rent anymore? Can he even think of filing his case and do something for him? And the other case that somebody, a landlord, is renting a house to undocumented because it's his friend, you know, and that happens a lot with very good people, that they rent their house to a loving citizen, well, a loving person that isn't documented, but that the landlord can do anything to get some help. And as a renter, can you do something being undocumented? I don't know if I explain myself the cases.
So I can handle the assistance side first, and I think Amanda can handle some of the more legal stuff. But so in this round, there is no legal residency requirement. With that said, there are still documentation requirements that become challenging for people who are undocumented, and that can be including lease agreements, because there can be informal arrangements. What I can say, I wish I had a straightforward answer. We're working with the Sunnyside Foundation and a group of advocates that they work with to try to find our way through this, where we can basically, and the idea is to potentially get a group, sort of a trusted group, to vouch for the relationship without needing to provide the same sort of level of documentation that's required. It's not, I say that that's like aspirational and hopeful. We've been talking with them a lot about this and a couple of other groups, and really want to be able to do this. The city and the county, I love them and all, but there's sort of like a don't ask, don't tell policy around this, which is sort of like, we're not going to talk about it. If undocumented people can provide the documentation that we want, then they can get the assistance. And we just know that there are challenges around trust and other things. So we're going to be proactive about trying to do a better job with that. But there isn't a great answer right now, except that there is no legal resident status to be able to get the federal funding.
Okay. Thank you.
And from the legal services side of things, so Step Up to Justice, we don't take any federal or state funding. We're a privately funded nonprofit, which means we have no strings attached to our money. So we can serve anyone as long as they financially qualify. So if someone is undocumented, they can absolutely reach out to us for legal services that has nothing to do with our ability to help them. I don't think that's the same for Southern Arizona Legal Aid, because they're LSC funded, so it's federal funding. So I think just to save that person time, send them Step Up to Justice's way, and we'd be, happy to do an intake and go from there.
Thank you, Amanda. And my last question, I'm very simple, I hope, is that for a regular case, how long will it take when I file my case? How long will it take to get resolved?
Okay, so on the assistance side, the last time that we did it, it was from the point that somebody applied, the average time was 2 weeks from application to basically an approved file, and then it was 4 days. The average was 4 days from an approved file to be reviewed and to be able to have the money check cut or those types of things. A big part of it, quite honestly, has to do with the kind of documentation, how ready somebody is. It's faster because we're dependent upon that for the due diligence on both the landlord and the tenant side. But I will say, and I think it's one of the reasons that they're continuing to use us in here, is that is far faster than what was done in the other two parts of this. There were two other programs running at the same time, and we just tend to be able to do this faster and pay faster. But again, it's always that caveat of it really comes down to the documentation and getting a full and complete file. But from that point, the average was not 4 business days, it was 4 calendar days from the time from a complete file to payment. So that's really relatively quickly, and one of the reasons that government agencies are trying to use us, because they know they don't pay that quickly.
Thank you so much. And I guess Reverend Ben has another question. Reverend.
And this is maybe just a clarification. I represent, my name is Ben Moore, and we're in the Midtown area. And I'm a member of the Agency Advisory Committee with the Community Food Bank. And so we have several partner agencies that have expressed concern about their clients facing eviction, even in light of the moratorium by the CDC. Is there any remedy or recourse for that?
I'm so sorry, Ben. Your question is kind of the nervousness around not having the CDC moratorium honored. Is that your question?
Yes.
Yeah, I completely understand that concern. We work, subject to Justice C is a very specific side of this issue. And so what we are seeing are a lot of filings in justice court that are trying to get around what the CDC moratorium covers. Because right now it only covers evictions for non-payment of rent for non-payment of rent. So any of those other things that Leah covered for a material breach, a health and safety breach, those evictions are theoretically able to move forward. So I think the most important thing I can say is reach out to legal services, either Step Up to Justice or Southern Arizona Legal Aid as soon as possible. Hopefully, even if you just think there could become a problem, reach out to us, and we would love to have you become a client at that point, because then we have more time and more resources to really figure out what's going on and help you prepare defenses. So I understand the concern, and please have your folks reach out to any of the legal organizations as soon as possible.
There's also some good work that is going on. And again, unfortunately, it's not everything's resolved, but I saw a communication recently where the county is looking at this to make sure that the judges and the courts themselves really understand what's going on. There's been idea of actually having a special court to deal with this as well. That's not instituted, but hopefully that would also maybe get rid of some of the nervousness around this. And I'm sorry, real quick, I wanted to just go back, Rocio. One of the things I just want to highlight again, the numbers I gave you were during a time when we didn't have a backlog of 2,500 people. So, and I know that's maybe obvious, but it will take us, our estimate is it may take us about 10 weeks or so to get through that backlog before. So somebody coming in right now would not be served within 2 to 3 weeks, as I suggested. So I wanted to clarify.
Well, and that really makes a lot of difference, because where I was going with my question is if we know somebody that is starting to get into that and is not sure that the problem is going to be solved in the next month or two, is it wise for them to start doing the paperwork in case that they need it? If they don't need it, praise be to God, they don't need it, and that's it. But if they need it, they at least are gaining some time doing all the paperwork in advance.
Yeah, and I would just, I mean, if they think that's going to happen, to sign up on the waiting list to get them in line. Here's one of the technicalities. Just, and again, this is what happens in government programs. They are not great for every specific instance. You have to actually be behind in rent to be able to get the assistance. You don't necessarily have to sign up for the waiting list. We are not going out advertising that or telling people that, but there is a reality around that. Nor do we want to encourage people to stop paying their rent. Those types of things. Those are kind of the unintended consequences. But what you're talking about, yes, somebody could actually sign up on the waiting list, and by the time we get to them, if they're behind, then they will qualify. And if not, like, honestly, we'll reach out to them, and they'd be like, "Oh, I'm caught up. I don't need your assistance." Okay, great. And then we move on. So again, we're not going to put that up on the website, but for groups, for some of the people that you're talking about, I think, yes, if they're certain they're going to be in some trouble in the months to come, go ahead and sign up on the waiting list.
Very good. Thank you.
I would just like to, we really didn't have a chance for Amanda to explain what Step Up to Justice does. And I think it would be good to let her do that so they know the kind of services that they're providing.
Right. So Amanda, sure, if you could just do that in just a minute, please.
Absolutely. So Step Up to Justice is a nonprofit in town. We provide free civil legal services to low-income families and individuals in Pima County. So we're only Pima County. We are a fully volunteer model, which means we are a small, mighty staff of 6, but we harness the talents of the private attorneys in Pima County who do their pro bono work with us, and they volunteer with us. So we have over 200 volunteer attorneys who will sign up for like a legal clinic. Say they sign up for one of our eviction prevention clinics, and they might volunteer for an afternoon every month where they meet with 5 of our clients and provide legal advice, look at their case, maybe help them do forms, and clients can come to us for as many appointments as they need as they're working through their case. So what's relevant here is we do landlord tenant, we do housing, family law, consumer protection, minor guardianship, and a few other things. So that's Step Up to Justice.
If I can say, CIC, we donate to Step Up to Justice on an annual basis because we believe in their work. So just, again, I mean, I don't mean that.
Thank you.
But it's, we believe in the stuff. They're great. They do great work. So we support their work.
Thank you so much.
Well, I want to just take a minute here to thank everybody who attended today, and also to thank our experts. Let's give them, a little round of applause. Thank you very much for helping us out. It is our intention to send via email to everybody who attended today, everybody who signed up, the links to the various resources, Danny's website, Amanda's name, and Step Up to Justice, and that sort of stuff. So watch for that to be coming to you. One of the most important things that we as a community can do is to get the word out to the people who need it. So feel free to share the information. I also want to let you know that next Saturday, we are scheduled to do this same presentation in Spanish. So if you know people who struggle with English, who would like to be able to get this kind of information and help in the Spanish language, please share that with them. The links were on the original flyer that came out. We had a flyer in English and in Spanish for the signups. And Danny is sending a wonderful guy to help out, and Amanda is sending another lawyer to serve in the function that she did, and we'll have some translation capabilities.
Yeah, on our side, Nancy, it's actually the guy who runs the program for us. He's both smarter and better looking than me, and more articulate, so that's great. But he is also the guy who actually built our platform and runs it, which is pretty cool.
Right, that's very cool. So we want to encourage them to attend. So Jane, Leah, Anna, is there anything that I've forgotten to mention?
I think we're going to be sending out an email to everybody who signed up with all of the contact information for Community Investment Corporation, for Step Up to Justice, for SALA, as well as some of the websites where you can get additional information. So watch your emails for that.
Yay.
Yay.
Excuse me, also the information from Leah is wonderful. So hopefully we can get that.
Slides, that's a good idea, Glenda. I think we can do that.
Absolutely.
you.
The meeting is being recorded and we are going to work on making that available. All right, so typically Pima County Interfaith, we close with prayer. Leah, may I impose on you?
Unmute it, Leah.
The Lord be with you.
And
also
with your
you.
spirit.
Let us pray. Dear Lord, thank you for bringing us together. It's a beautiful day today. Let us remember those for whom it is not a beautiful day, whether because of weather, finances, worries about COVID, illness, disease, death. Let us remember them and keep them in our hearts. And let us work to bring justice and do your work in this world. In your name today, thank you. Amen.
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 All right, thank you very much, you guys. If you have any comments for us, feel free to send them our way. We appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
wonderful weekend.
Thank you. Yes, enjoy your weekend. Blessings.
Thanks, Amanda and Danny.
And thanks,
Thank you,
everyone.
everyone. Thank you for all that you all do.
Blessings to you all.
Thanks.